Hello and welcome back to Locking Horns. We're back with Jeff Rigdon here. We're going to do a little bit more Havamal research and figuring out like we did in the first session. We're going to continue with Stanza 12 and move on from there and kind of see how far we get. I've also brought with me this evening, welcome Torbjorn. Brother of mine has been on the show before, and again, brother of mine and I trust his word, and I hope you do too. So, just like last time, we're going to get into it. So we last off with Stanza 11.
Yes.
And we were talking about how it's best not to go out into the field with nothing but alcohol, or something to that effect. And once again, we'll go with a couple of different translations of the stanzas and then kind of just discuss them openly. So I will read the Bray to start. Less good then, they say, for the sons of men is the drinking oft of ale. For the more they drink, the less they think, and keep a watch over their wits.
It is seldom wise to go into the field when anything might happen, intoxicated to the point you can't take care of the eventuality of things. There's a wisdom here based on overuse of alcohol or drinking at the wrong place and time. And mostly it comes down to that, I think.
Yeah.
It's the wrong place and time. There's nothing wrong with drinking ale. There's nothing wrong with drinking mead. There's nothing wrong with drinking it to excess if you're willing to deal with the consequences the next day. The hangover or the sickness or whatever may come upon you. If nothing at all, then good for you. But there's a time and a place for everything. And that's the essence of these passages. There's a time and a place for everything. Enjoy your moments. Enjoy your good times with your brothers. Mm-hmm. Drink your ale, drink your mead, have fun. But there is place and time for all those things. So that's what I have taken from it.
Yeah, it's all about drinking your share, but not drinking to the excess of losing control of yourself.
Yeah, because the final part of that stanza, and keep a watch o'er their wits. Mm-hmm. If you can no longer control your actions or words, you have thus already gone too far.
I'll give you a historical example. We, of course, are familiar with the great Harold Hardrada, the last great Viking king who served the Varangian was a Varangian general for the Byzantine emperor. Was well known in Rusa, the land of the Rus at that time. Took a vast treasure back to Norway, bought half the kingdom of Norway from his nephew, and went on to great deeds. In his latter life, in his 60s perhaps, he decided that he was going to take advantage of a claim that he rightfully had from the Danish king, that he would take over the kingdom of England when the Saxon king passed. And so in 1066, he assembled an army. They traveled to England. They attacked York, conquered York. Went back to the riverside to relax and party, took off their armor. It was a hot day. They were drinking ale and mead and laughing and joking and just having a good time, having pillaged York and had such an easy victory. When all of a sudden they were set upon by the army of the English, the Saxons, Harold Godwinson. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of their choices, they lost that battle. Harold Hardrada lost his life. That was the last of the Viking raids of any significance on the shores of England. Time and place. They didn't set out guards. They thought that they were safe.
Celebrated way too soon.
Way too soon and with too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
Right.
Too much ale. It'd been one thing to just, we won, let's get ready for the next battle. No,
right.
That's not what they did. It was a complete explosion of good times.
Right.
We're relaxed. We just had a great victory. We're almost conquered England.
Yeah. Right.
Let's celebrate.
All about the time and place.
Yeah.
And they were in foreign land under foreign, opposing armies that could easily find them and decided to have a party instead of...
You don't, post a guard. And even if you did post a guard, even if they did warn you successfully that the defensive force was fighting back, You are too far gone because you have done too much in excess.
Yeah.
Now, there's also another story that goes along with this. Now, bear in mind the Saxon army was on one side of the river, the Viking army was on the other side of the river, and there was a bridge. It is the Battle of Stamford
Right.
Bridge. This gives us the story of the Berserker, who stood his ground while
Right.
his guys could get armored up as much as they could or as well as they could, so that
He held back
he
the
at least
onslaught.
delayed the onset until he eventually was slain. It's a great story. But we don't know if he was one who abstained. We know he was said to be a berserker, which
Right.
would imply he didn't abstain from anything. But he was prepared, and he stepped forward and sacrificed himself to give his
Just a little bit more time.
a little bit more time. It didn't help, but he sacrificed his life for that to happen. Well, that's one of our ideals. That notion of sacrifice, that notion of saying, I will give my life for you that we may achieve victory
And-
if possible.
He stood at a point where he was making sure that Valhalla gates would be opening for him.
I have no doubt.
He like at that moment after one or two had fallen and you see the funneling of the enemy force at the other side of the bridge and you're swinging
We
your
don't
axe
know his
1,
name.
2, 3, 4
don't know
just
his name.
dropping them left
And he was
right.
using a Dane's axe, we are told. So, but we don't know his name. He is just simply known as the Berserker at Stamford Bridge. But we honor him. We honor his memory. We honor Harold Hardradas too, but in that particular instance, for all of his victories, and he had many,
yeah.
he was considered the best warrior of his time, the greatest general of his time, of the Northern Realm, but also established himself in the Mediterranean, of course. So, yeah, be prepared. Oh, now that was from Bray.
That was from Bray.
Now
right.
this is from Bellows. No, this is from Larrington. It isn't as good as it's said to be, ale for the sons of men. For the more he drinks, the less he knows about the nature of men. Now, adds a little twist to it. Says many of the same exact words. But now here's a little twist at the end, the nature of men. This applies even more so to the story that we just discussed. The nature of men. Now, if you're in a battle, you would want to be prepared. You're trained to be prepared. That's part of your responsibility, is to be prepared. That should be part of your nature. Now, you've been trained to it. You've been attached to it for most of your adult life. This is something that you just do. You shouldn't have to think about it. But it lessened the ability to achieve that nature of man. That is something that should be yours.
Don't drink yourself into a situation where you remove your own control from the equation.
Especially given place and time. And we've all been out to the
Harold
pubs and bars, and
Hardrada.
we have had too much to drink at given times. We've all done that, but we knew, other than the drive home, we knew we were in a safe place. We knew we were amongst folks. We didn't have to really concern ourselves. We've had confrontations, but we were able to, and we had the ability to address them in the moment. But that, again, is part of place and time. So those are two different translations, and this is part of everything that we want to impart, is that there are translations, plural. Do not limit yourself to one translation. Not only to what that you can get in the written word, the printed word, what's available online, what we have now on YouTube, all the various great scholars that are doing great work. Last time we did this, we mentioned Jackson Crawford. He's doing wonderful work. He's totally invested in it. I have compared him to a Snorri Sturluson type of individual. He's a true scholar. He's a man of substance. He has presence. He has dignity, and he's representing a culture from a deeper knowledge than what many have done, or they have done, but they didn't do it in the mainstream.
Right.
So they're not well known. Larrington has done all the same things that Jackson Crawford has done.
Right.
And now they're talking to each other.
Right.
Bellows preceded that. Bray preceded Bellows. So these are translations, and many of them will give you exact same words
Yeah.
or the same understanding
Right.
of a stanza, but it still comes down to the word may have a deeper meaning than the word that's given to us in its literal sense. It may be a term contained in a word. So last time we compared mead in one of the stanzas
Yeah.
to feast.
Yeah.
We all understand what a feast is, but to the other translator, it represented mead because it had a different connotation to the word. It's not just a word; it's a phrase. Because we tried to find the word mead, it wasn't there. So the word that was used is a implication of mead drinking because it's different than ale.
Right.
And that's something that only that individual's knowledge of the word or the phrase that is attached to the word could bring forth. That's the importance of reading more than one translation.
Right.
So you have a deeper understanding.
And bear in mind, too, we are not translating. My education level does not go that high, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. We are discussing the translations that have been provided for us. We have 5, maybe 6 here.
Mm-hmm.
But let's move on to 13. And I like the the Bray because it puts in a couple of really long words here that seem almost out of place. But a bird of unmindfulness flutters over the ale feast, wheeling away men's wits with the feathers of that fowl I fettered once in the garths of Gunhold's bellow.
That is poetic. And it's, again, as we discussed last time, Bray was my first exposure to the Havamal. Bellows says the same thing but uses different terminology. I mean, not Bellows, but Larrington. But I'll also read Bellows here in a moment. The heron of forgetfulness hovers over the ale drinking. He steals men's wits. With the feathers of this bird I was fettered in the court of Gunlud. Now that's Larrington. Bellows, overbear the bird of forgetfulness broods and steals the minds of men. With the heron's feathers fettered I lay, and in Gunnloth's house was held. Was held. Now that would imply that we know a deeper information here.
Right.
A little bit deeper. It's not so exact here. It says I was fettered. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Fettered. Now, held, fettered, same thing. Means the same thing.
Bound.
Yeah. You're trapped. So, again, some of the same terminology, exact same meaning, but spoken in a little bit different word. But it all comes from the exact same source.
Now, this also taps into a cross-referencing source of the tale of Odin going to the hall of Gunnlod and her father,
Yes.
Suttungr, to retrieve the mead of poetry. So in the Havamal, we have reference to another story that we have someplace else.
And I think also that idea of that feathered, that, being trapped is in the fact that what he's trying to achieve is his goal and is what is keeping him there, but he's not there for what he seems to be there for. So he's acting out a part, and he's stuck there doing the part until he can get to what he wants, which is the mead of wisdom. So
Right. And in that instance, Odin was traveling under the alias of... I'm going to try to remember it.
I'll let you look that up. This is one of the first instances where we were brought into the broader picture of things. The stories that we are given in the Elder Edda, in
Bulwark.
the Elder Edda, the Poetic Edda, what we have in the Prose Edda or the Younger Edda, these stories are now fleshed out, but references
Yeah.
are made. References are made. Now, what we encourage people to do, we look at it, I have come to know this, now I want to know the next. I have come to know this, now I want to know the next. Where will I find that story? That's what we encourage you to do. When you are introduced to a name, when you're introduced to a story, you're introduced to a situation, there is a follow-up to it. And this just gives you an opening. It's you're standing at the door, you're standing at the gate. All you have to do is open it up and go a little bit deeper. This is the pursuit of knowledge. Added with experience brings forth wisdom. As you gain in wisdom, you start to understand that I need to know.
Right.
I want to know. Having come to know, I want to know more.
So I did not know the story or even a generalized basic statement of what that story was and what it was about until I was reading the Havamal and dove a little bit deeper. Okay, who's Gunlad? And who's Suttinger? And so you get on, you Google because unfortunately.
And where did the meat of poetry come from?
Right.
And then we were introduced to Kvasir, and we're introduced to the backstory with him. And then we're introduced to the Aesir-Vanir War. Mm-hmm. And then we're introduced to the creation of the 9 realms and the creation of Askanimbla, the first man and woman. One leads to the next, to know the next, to know the next. And that all started with one name, Gudlad, one name. Brought forth how many other stories. We're introduced to the mead that is named Odre.
Right.
We're introduced to Kvasir and his weird. We're introduced to Uthin's need to obtain the mead of poetry. Why it was important to him to obtain the mead of poetry.
And why he couldn't just go as himself.
And therefore, why is he called the god of poetry? Where did that come from? Well, here's an introduction to all of that based on one name that's shared to us in our words of wisdom of the High One. So this is one of the references that tells us who the author is.
Yeah.
It is from being introduced to the individual Gudlad that we know that this story comes from, because this is speaking in, I was fettered.
Yeah.
I was. And this one, with the heron's feathers fettered I lay. Mm-hmm. Now we know who's speaking. The rest has been kind of general information. Anybody could be saying this. Any wise person, any traveled person, anyone with life experience, with the experience of battle, with the experience of traveling as a wanderer, as a merchant, whatever the case may be, could be any human being. Mm-hmm. Giving basic words of wisdom about drinking, the over-drinking of ale, of just traveling in general, being hospitable, being grateful for hospitality offered to you by others. That could be any traveler. Now we're being told who the author is.
Right.
That's the significance of that particular stanza.
The references to that story, Odin in Suttinger's court, I highly suggest you dig into it too. Moving on to 14. As I pick up my horn.
So, says, drunk was I then. I was overdrunk in that crafty Utin's court. But best is an ale feast when a man is able to call back his wits at once. So that's just basically touching again on having your fill, but not getting to the point that you're not capable of functioning.
So Odin has to go and entertain himself whilst entertaining his hosts in order to achieve his goals.
Play the part.
And it's like staying up all night with your granddad after you get home from school and he's trying to get you drunk, right? And it's just, no, you got to keep going. Come on. Now you have to entertain yourself while entertaining your hosts, But he says, I got drunk. I got over drunk at that cunning Fjalnir's. It's the best drunkenness. when everyone after it regains his reason.
We've been there. Practical knowledge and experience. They all say pretty much the same thing. This is Larrington. Drunk I was more than drunk at wise Fjollers. That's the best sort of ale drinking, when afterwards every man gets his mind back again.
Yeah.
This is Bello. Drunk I was dead drunk, when with Fjoller wise I was. 'Tis the best of drinking, if back one brings his wisdom with him home.
Yeah.
Now, we have had some great episodes of drinking.
Yes, this is true.
We have found that the sharing of mead brings forth the eloquence of the tongue. We can speak. We have a tendency to speak and to share our times and our
Sometimes
knowledge.
speak
Speak too much, sometimes too loudly.
Generally has a
yes, very
relative
loudly.
meter ratio to how much ale or mead you have consumed.
And ale is different from mead.
It is.
The way you drink ale, the way you drink mead, the effect that it has on your tongue, the effect that it has on your ability to speak and bring forth your thoughts, and or to remember your good time that you had. We see the whole world based on moments in time.
Right.
We have the weal and the woe, the joy and the sorrow of the moment. And this is speaking of that. I would rather have those memories than to be so drunk, dead drunk. I can't. I have been there.
Yeah.
I don't remember where I went, or what I said, or what stupid thing I might have
did
done.
what?
How did I end up home? It's happened. That is not wise.
And all of these reference regaining their reason, which means you were so drunk
Although I find
that you had no concept of reason.
I found that interesting that the first one and the last one kind of spoke the same of, one gaining his own wits back.
Mm-hmm.
And then the two you guys read were, all about everyone gaining their wits back. So difference in the translation that somebody took from it. And
There's, honestly, there's
Leave
another
it
there's
be.
another piece to that too. I think is like when we, and I'll say we specifically because I know it to be factual, have opened up our deepest, darkest kind of things and our emotions, and let the walls down and opened up to a brother, and gotten the darkness off my chest. Mead allows that transition, that opening up of being able to elaborate things more clearly, actually speak the emotions that you're having.
Makes a difference. It's we've lived a life. We've enjoyed our moments. We've enjoyed those things in this world that enhance the moments. We discussed some of that before we started the program. Mead has a very peculiar effect on me. I never saw it as peculiar until I engaged in it, and then engaged in it regularly. Mm-hmm. I become so much more of who I am when I'm in mead. There's a flow that comes from me that I've had it, but I don't have it in exactly that way, because I'm not just putting forth knowledge, not putting forth information. I'm putting forth the essence of who I am.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Like the real you.
The real me. Vulnerable but in control. Aware, cognizant. I've never been too drunk on mead.
Yes.
Never.
Right.
Never. And I have copious quantities of mead. But never
Yeah.
have I been too drunk. Never. But I tried. I did my best to get there. I've never gotten sick from it. Never had a hangover from
Yes.
it. I can't say that about any other alcohol at all. Period. Now, the mead of poetry, that essence of all things, coming from the wisest of all beings, Kvasir, when he was slain. Again, that's a great story. We won't relate it here, but it's a great story. And how it was collected and how it ended up in Suttungur's hall,
Right.
how Gunla got involved in it. This is not just mead. This is the essence of mead. This is what makes mead special. It's special. It's unique in this world. It's special. Its origins are special. There's quite a few stanzas that speak of drinking or over drinking in the Havamal. Now, why? Why? Why would you say that would be? Why is drinking spoken of so much in the Havamal? And it is. Quite a few stanzas are devoted to it.
There's the, in my viewpoint, there's the social drinking, and then there's the ritual drinking. Social drinking when you're out with your buddies, you're having a good time, you're hitting the bars, the clubs, enjoying that energy. And you drink a lot. Been there, done that. Glad I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Doesn't fit our life anymore.
And then what I call ritual drinking, you're drinking in private. Now, I like to have a couple brothers over and have conversation. You know, that's kind of like the essence of why we're filming it.
Yes.
You know, like mead is in its ability to just loosen the tongue in a relaxed manner.
Again, we're telling you plainly, do not rely on a translation to have a deeper knowledge. Get as many as you can. They're all over there. Whether it be on a video, whether it be in the written word, whether it be in conversation with others, it's there for you. Get more than one translation in order to have a deeper understanding. And if you want to take the time, I haven't translated everything, but I have gone through the process of translating those stanzas that meant the most to me. So again, I would have a deeper understanding of that word that is really a term based on a moment in time in history and a place in time in history for that individual who came up with that word. And we just understand it as walking. Oh no, it's a lot more than walking.
Right. All right, on to stanza 15. And again, we'll start with the bray. Silent and thoughtful and bold in strife, the prince's Bjarn should be. Joyous and generous let each man show him, until he shall suffer death.
And that's bray.
That's bray.
This is an important stanza, because now we're speaking of, again, another story that's given to us of the essence of who we are and where we come from, the Rigdula, the ascendance of man, which goes to a rune, manas. But it's the ascendance of mankind from the origins of Ask and Elm to now the status, the social status of humanity, where we have the thrall, the carl, and the jarl, eventually leading to Konung, or Kong, who is the king. So this introduces us to that particular concept. What is expected of the prince? What is expected of those in a position of responsibility? The age doesn't matter. Where's the nobility?
Right.
Where's the nobility? Where's the character of that individual? It speaks of that right from the very beginning. And this is Larrington. Silent and thoughtful a prince's son should be, and bold in fighting. Okay? Silent and thoughtful. You should display wisdom. Silent and thoughtful is a true indicator of the wise. They don't walk in boisterous. They don't walk in looking to draw attention to themselves. In the very first stanza, we're told, be aware of what you're walking into.
Know your surroundings.
Look around. Know what's going on before you even introduce yourself. Know who's there. Know who you're going into. What crew, what crowd, what group of people. Now this is something that should be silent and thoughtful. A prince's son should be, and bold in fighting. Well, we all respect the warrior. We're warriors. We respect warriors. They follow the warrior way. This is who we are as individuals. We look for that in other people that we bring into our association. How much more do we expect that of those people that we would follow? That we would follow. I have many equals. I have none that I see as above me. Everyone in my association, everyone in my crew, we're equals. This has always been our concept. This has always been our principle. I'm not a jarl. I'm not a chieftain. I have chieftain tendencies and responsibilities, but I don't put myself on a pedestal. This individual is on a pedestal. This is the prince's son.
Yeah.
Typically, that would mean the king's son. Okay, a prince is a general term for that person in leadership. Now, this is what it says in Bellows. The son of a king shall be silent and wise, and bold in battle as well. Exactly the same thing. Okay, what does yours say?
This one's got taciturn and prudent, and in war daring should a king's children be.
Okay, now that's a broader statement.
That's Thorpe.
Okay, now then the second part of that, cheerful and merry every man should be until he waits for death. Now that has nothing to do with the prince. That's a general statement of you and I, which is basically who we are. This is how we live our lives.
What that's telling me is our simple golden rule. You know, if you are joyous and generous to me, then in return you will be shown the same respect, and I will be joyous and generous to you. There can be a common exchange, no matter what your status is in the political hierarchy. You're a man, I'm a man. You're a woman, you're a woman. We're people.
Let's have a good time.
This is common respect. Plain and simple.
And enjoying your moments.
Yeah.
Our common battle cry: live large and laugh out loud. Yeah. In other words, be engaged. Be engaged in this world. Living, loving, liking, being where you want to be and doing what you want to do to the extent that you can do. We have responsibilities. Somebody has to feed the pigs. Somebody has to clean the debris out. Somebody has to do something. You have responsibilities. Then go on and enjoy those other times in your life. In Bellows,
Really what I get from it.
the second portion is bravely and gladly a man shall go till the day of his death is come. Enjoy your moments in time. We're only given so much time.
Right.
I'm at the end portion of my journey. You're more towards the middle portions of your journey. So it doesn't take away any of the responsibilities I have. It doesn't take away any of the trials and tribulations I go through on any daily basis at any given time. But still, that particular stanza speaks of who I am.
Right.
I have lost my ability to see the joy in the moment. That has happened to me. But then I work to get it back, because that is how I would live my life. That's how I would share my life with you. That's what's important to me. Our best times have been with each other for the times when we were together.
Right.
Yeah.
It didn't even matter how many other people were around when we, the core people that are the picture I have on my Facebook page, it's the three of us. Those are memories. Those are moments. And they were great moments. If we could string them together, we would have had the best, most blessed life that anybody could ever have. You can't.
Well, yeah, and that's what this is speaking about.
Yeah.
It's the duality of life. It's,
Yes.
giving a representation of, certain people in certain positions have to carry out their duties and do their job. As a mechanic, you have to go to work. You have to work on somebody's car. You have to make sure you do a good job. You have to make sure that they're going down the road safely with, no likelihood of severe injury. But at the same time, joyous and liberal one should be until the end of their death, the hour of their death. So it's just...
You've held positions of responsibility. You've been a manager. You've had responsibility for an entire shop, all the people in it, all the equipment, several $1 million worth of responsibility. You've been in the same situation. I've been in the same situation. There's a certain thing that's expected of us once you reach a certain position. You're not just one of the boys. You may see yourself as one of the boys when you're with your boys, but your employees, those people that are responsible to you and you're responsible for them, we're not on the same level. I just can't go out and do the things with you that I can do with people that are on the same level I am. So there's a responsibility that comes with responsibility. Right. And
we associate at work and only at work.
Yeah. There has to be a separation. Whether you like it or not, whether that's your nature or not, you have to accept the responsibility of it, given your place in life. That's the king's son.
Torbjorn, why don't you go ahead and read us what you have there for 16. And what Torbjorn's reading, by the way, is straight off the Facebook page that I have put up. It's Locking Horns, and this is what I put up early on. So he's just using that as a reference.
One of my favorite ones, actually. A cowardly man thinks he will ever live in warfare if warfare he avoids, but old age will give him no peace, though spears may spare him. And that, to me, just strictly speaks to, being courageous and not being afraid to step off the edge.
Jeff, you have seen war. We have not. Torbjorn and I have not seen military combat. I'll word it that way.
Yeah, different. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This has kind of like two sides to the same coin. The farmer defends his lands against the wildlife of the land from raiders, given time and place in history. But he's not a Viking. He's not one that goes a Viking. It's not his job description. It's not what he does for the community. He's a farmer, but he has to defend the lands. And he can go through his entire life not seeing combat, military combat. But this still applies.
Absolutely.
And then you have the other side of the coin, which is, a life of conflict, if you would. A military life, possibly, or, given the modern day and age, in inner cities. Mm-hmm. You could say it the same way. But this is, I think you have the Thorpe, if memory serves correct. Bray says, "A coward believes he will ever live if he keep him safe from strife. But old age leaves him not long in peace, though spears may spare his life."
Mm-hmm. I like that one better. It's a little more poetic.
There are two more here. They all say the same thing, but they're all worded differently.
A little different. A noun change, a verb change.
So, here we go. And these are two significant differences just at the very beginning. And this is from Larrington. The foolish man, Bellow says, the sluggard. Mm-hmm. Now, those are not the same words.
Yeah.
They don't have the same meaning. The foolish, we know what foolish is.
I think you're
deceiving yourself. You're deluding yourself. You think you can twist things and make it into your take advantage of a situation and make it your own. You're too stupid to see the truth of it. You can't cross the bridge without building the bridge. You can't do certain things until you've done certain things. You can't just expect things are going to work out just because you hope they're going to work out. That's foolishness.
Yeah.
The sluggard would imply that you're lazy. That's what sluggard means. You're lazy. You put things off. Now, they're saying the same thing. The foolish man thinks he will live forever. The sluggard believes he shall live forever. Okay? Those are the same. The next one. If he keeps away from fighting, if the fight he faces not. Same thing.
Yeah, same
difference there. But old age won't grant him a truce, but age shall not grant him the gift of peace, even if the spears do. Those spears may spare his life. So, yes, you've avoided the conflict. You've avoided the situations of life. You've let things go by. Old age is still going to get you. Mm-hmm. Even if you haven't taken chances, even if you haven't put yourself out there, even if you haven't stepped off the ledge, even if you haven't put yourself in dangerous situations, you're still going to die.
Yep.
So, the point here, in my opinion, is why would you not bring in all of life, knowing that you're going to die one day anyway?
Right.
To the limits of your ability, your resources, your opportunities, go out and live your life. Expose yourself to life. Expose yourself to love.
Take in as much as
I've had a broken heart.
Can.
You've had a broken heart. You've had a broken heart. We've broken hearts. We've lived lives. It doesn't have anything to do, in my opinion, with combat specifically. But that's the understanding that usually comes forth from this for those people who read it without seeing the other layers that are behind it. Because it doesn't have to be that you're physically threatened and you're avoiding conflict in the literal sense of battle.
Right, and in this
case, it does.
Yeah, and that's simply by using spears.
Yeah.
Because that's a direct translation. That is, however,
place and time.
However. Yeah. Also, and I personally think that it is reflecting that Viking way of life more than it is reflecting that farmer way of life. However, a wolf's teeth are spears. Okay.
The bear's claws
A
are
bad
sharp.
a bad crop is a thorn in your side. Okay?
Could lead to starvation.
I mean, this can be taken very metaphorically.
Yes.
In a couple of different directions.
That's
Oh yeah, it could be just everyday life, just of should I even bother to try for that promotion? Not thinking well of yourself, and that you're gonna die anyway, so why not try?
Right.
Expose yourself.
Yeah.
Expose yourself to the possibility that, I could get hurt. But you're going to miss an opportunity that you wouldn't have until you took that step in that direction.
Right.
So, what is typically seen as resisting the opportunity to go to battle, to stand back and allow this to happen, is commonly associated with this stanza. But again, we want to apply all of the Havamal to today's world. We want to say everything that's contained in this, which we at least believe goes back to the 900s, if not the 700s, if not the 400s, if not into the Bronze Age.
Right.
We don't know.
Right.
We have no way of knowing this. This is an accumulation.
On paper, late 1200s.
That's when it was written down.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So on this, I would like to say that the modern way of viewing this would be, but did you die?
Right, right. One of your most favorite phrases.
But did we die?
But did you die?
Yeah, it didn't kill you, did it? And again, we have just been talking about don't drink too much, be aware of your moments, hold on to your memories. Don't drink so much that you can't remember the good time that you had and you can't share it again. Next time you see, man, wasn't that fun? We had such a good time. I don't remember nothing.
Yeah.
My brother was like that. He would get so obliterated that we would actually pick him up from a party and throw him in the car and just drive around with him, and it's like he was dead. It's like, breakfast at Bernie's or whatever. and
Let's get back into it. 17.
17. This is from Bellows. The fool is agape when he comes to the feast. He stammers or else is still. But soon, if he gets a drink, is it seen that the mind of the man is like? I had to chuckle at that because we've seen that many times.
Yeah, this one's a fool gapes when to a house he comes. To himself mutters or is silent. But all at once, if he gets a drink, then the man's mind is displayed.
Oh, wow. How many times have we seen that?
That's why I chuckled.
Yeah. And the bray that I have is, a fool will gape when he goes to a friend, and mumble only, or mope, but pass him the ale cup, and in a moment the mind of that man is shown. Now, I kind of brought this up earlier, that we open up to each other in our closest of moments.
Yeah.
And we share burdens and troubles with each other. And this reflects that specifically.
Gape is the key word here. Now, and this is Larrington. The fool gapes when he comes on a visit. He mutters to himself or keeps silent. But it's all up with him if he gets a swig of drink and the man's mind is exposed. We know a lot of people that we can call posers. That come, they show up, perhaps they have the look, but they don't have the mind, they don't have the heart, they don't have the spirit, they don't have the truth about them. Mostly whatever they have to offer is deceptive. They're looking to gain an advantage. But we see them quickly. We see them for who they are.
Yeah, a lot of folks are wearing,
But it's important to be aware of these people.
and such.
It's important.
On to 18. The bray. He shows alone who has wandered wide, and far has fared on the way. What manner of mind has man doth own, who is wise of head and heart.
So he alone knows who wanders wide and has much experienced. By what disposition each man is ruled, who common sense possesses.
And that's Thor. This is Larrington. Only that man who travels widely and has journeyed a great deal knows what sort of mind each man has in his control, he who's sharp in his wits. And then Bellows, he alone is aware who has wandered wide and far abroad has fared, how great a mind is guided by him that wealth of wisdom has.
Okay, so 2 parts. In our last session, we saw the similar beginning of a stanza.
The wanderer.
He who wanders wide.
Yes.
So, one, a reference to Odin himself, of course, but also to, one who has traveled and experienced what life has to offer only knows the maximum amount of his own wisdom. The experienced man.
And that's really what it is. I have not traveled. I have not traveled the world. I have not had that ability. I became a father and a husband early, and I devoted my life to that. But I know people who have traveled, and I know of people who have traveled. And those people have life experiences and have dealt with people and interacted with people in ways that I never have and never will. But it benefits them if they make use of it, if they're wise in their acquisition of experiences. Because it's not just being there, it's about being in the moment while you're there, experiencing these things and the people who live there. One of my favorite stories to tell of the Vikings is this need they had to see what's beyond the horizon, to travel, to go to these lands and to see what else is out there, because their population was never great. We are told the great heathen army may have been the largest army ever accumulated from the northern lands at one time, of maybe 10,000.
Right.
Some say no more than 5, but it's a significant amount of warriors at a given time and place at that time in history. Because after the fall of the Roman Empire and what preceded that and the plagues that came around, the population had just crashed.
And then, of course,
And this has happened time after time.
A small number, too, being that it's pulled from multiple countries.
A big
It's not
warrior
just one
band
tribe.
is several, if you had 20 ships and each ship had 40 to 50 to 100 men at the most, depending on the size of the average ship at that time, you had a really good sized army to go against whomever. So, to travel widely and to experience life as you've seen it, this is again speaking of Odin. This is again him speaking of what he has done and what he has found on his journeys, what he has picked up, what he's taken from it,
I'm going to add
what he wants us to know.
I want to add another facet to this dice. Take the concept of wandering wide as time. You are a significant age difference than me. You have wandered farther for longer in your existence than I have. And he who has wandered wide may be your granddad sitting over in the corner waiting for somebody to come sit down and listen to a story he may have to speak, or Ladfafnir when he comes to the middle of the tavern. It's just described, he's just an old traveled man.
There's many ways to look at wandering. Life experience, given type of life experience. A family man. I've gone through all the different aspects of having gone through and had a family, and have the births, the deaths, the leavings, the joinings, all of the different aspects, the winning, the losing, the gaining, the loss of family members who have passed on, loss of children, many things that many people go through, many much worse than anything I've ever gone through, but what I've gone through was the worst thing I'd ever had happen to me.
Right.
So it's all relative. So no one can say I've suffered more. You don't know how I've suffered. You haven't
Right.
suffered as I've suffered for the reasons that I have suffered. Nor have you known the joy I've had, because your joy was not the same joy based on your circumstances. So it's a very broad statement. This is a broad stanza. You can interpret it many different ways. To wander is to experience life, though. That's it for me. With journeys associated with it, it's what you're taking from it. Each of these experiences you have, whether it be from a journey where you're actually wandering physically and interacting with other people, other places, other nations, other cultures, which is enriching to the totality of who you are as a human being, to have a broader perspective of the world. This on the higher level, that's Uthen. On the higher level is search for knowledge, is search for experience. Not just knowledge unto itself, not just the academic portion of it, but the experience of learning. The things that you encounter as you learn. The people you interact with as you learn. That's the wanderer's journey. But then what you take from it. If you're just, as it says in other stanzas that preceded this, the foolish man. Well, he'll walk into a situation where and it says this in another one of the Havamals, where you have the ignorant comes amongst the wise and can gain nothing from it because they're stupid on top of being ignorant. Ignorant simply means you don't know. You have not known that. You haven't gained that knowledge yet.
Right.
The stupid can't gain that knowledge, cannot gain that information, and therefore can never be wise. So that, for me, this is what being the wanderer is. My journey as a father, as a family man, is a journey that you're on now. Well, I've already been through it, but then it started over again. There's another layer to that journey. So, yeah.
You had said something last year, and I quote. You have to realize when your old life is dead.
Yeah.
And your new life begins.
Yeah, because I mean, we do that in life. I mean, we go through those, multiple. I was a child. I was a young man. I was an adult.
Right.
But yeah, for me, even this, what I like about the Havamal as a total presence is that this, although you can see it in that large expanse of all the things I can do, you can also add this to the littler things of, one who only knows one style of any kind of education or training. I'm just a mechanic. That's what I do. That's what I know how to do.
Right.
Don't hand me a sewing needle because I'm lost. So it's better to be that man that I don't know how to rebuild an engine, but I can do an oil change. I can change my air filter. I can rotate my tires.
Right.
And I can also stitch myself up if I get shot with a gun.
We call that individual the jack of all trades in our common culture terminology. The other we refer to as a professional or a genius, because that individual knows everything there is to know about any kind of mechanical thing, but couldn't turn on the TV and couldn't do any electrical stuff.
Maybe not a
thing.
genius. And I've worked with a couple of master techs, some older gentlemen. One said to me, this guy's name was Jack Jager. He said to me, Matt, it's just nuts and bolts. When it comes right down to it, it's just nuts and bolts.
And there are mathematical savants that will say exactly the same thing. They're just numbers. Yet I can figure this computation just by looking at it. You would have to go through all these machinations to get to the same answer. It'll take you 5 hours. They just did it in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
That's genius.
Yeah.
That's genius. But most geniuses could care less that they're geniuses. Yeah.
Number 19, I'll read the bray. Keep not the mead cup, but drink thy measure. Speak needful words or none. None shall upbraid thee for lacking of breeding, if soon thou seekest thy rest.
So much wisdom there.
And I was the absolute opposite of this for a good portion of my life.
Yeah.
Not afraid to say it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not there now.
This is Larrington. A man shouldn't hold on to the cup, but drink mead in moderation. Now, we've spoken of this already. We've we've consumed a lot of mead over a period of time, doing other things while we were consuming mead. We were mostly in conversation, mostly moving around, mostly engaging, mostly active. We weren't just in a sitting position consuming mead in large quantities without doing anything else.
Right.
We didn't do that, but we did consume a good bit of mead. So, and then we passed the cup.
Yeah.
Now, this is the thing. This is a thing that we do that is frowned upon in today's world, but we know that mead is it has antimicrobial properties. It's a antibiotic. It's used as a medicine. It's used as an herb, a healing mechanism. So we have a trust in mead, but we share the horn. We share the cup. No, anybody you've had in your association that you saw tip up a cup or a horn, you know that they were being greedy. They were being greedy.
Read the bellows.
Yeah.
For us, I think it is best.
This is shun not the mead, but drink in measure. Speak to the point, or be still. For rudeness none shall rightly blame thee, if soon thy bed thou seekest. Now this is something, again, we understand how to drink mead. We understand how it affects us. We understand it because we've lived with it. It's become part of us. It is who we are. But I respect those, and I have been respected for saying, it's time for me to go. Now, when I go, I don't make a big presentation of it. A lot of times I'll just leave. And then people are looking around saying,
where's
where
Jeff?
did he go?
Where's Jeff?
But I know when my
Jeff?
time has come. I know when it's time for me to leave. I know when my capacity has reached a level where now I know that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to do it now. What I had to share has now been shared. What gifts I had to give have been given. The message that I was to pass on to someone that was meant to hear that from the spiritual realm that I walk in was delivered, and now I'm free to go. It's not about level of intoxication, because when that time comes, I'm as sober as I can possibly be. My head's clear, my body reflexes are fine, I have no issues. So for those who are listening to this thinking we're a bunch of idiots that drive around drunk and fools, no, we're not those people. But I know the time to leave. And I know, because I've been there, as the stanza that precedes it, I've experienced this. This has been part of my wandering. In all of the interactions and all of the gatherings we've had, in all of the classes I've given and all the lectures that I've performed, I knew when it was time to stop. I knew when it was time to break. I knew when it was time to step aside. I knew when it was time to turn into Q&A. I understood that because that was part of my wandering experience, wisdom acquisition. That's what these things speak of. That's the wisdom that can be taken from this broader concept of things and put down into your everyday portions of life. It will apply. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of the Havamal.
Yeah, no one to call it a night.
Well, shun not the mead, brothers. Skull, and drink thy measure. Torbjorn, you want to read the next one?
A greedy man, if he be not moderate, eats to his mortal sorrow. Oftentimes his belly draws laughter on a silly man who among the prudent comes.
The greedy man.
Yeah, that's just like a lot of what we're speaking about, having your fill. Not being greedy and I get mead again for another month. Let me drink 4 bottles.
Or the childhood reference that I put to this is Dickens' Christmas Carol. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
A greedy man,
Yeah.
and of course I also would picture it as Scrooge McDuck from DuckTales, the greedy man,
or the comic book that preceded it.
Yeah.
Again, this can be, it has been used to define obesity. It has been used to define greed unto itself, not just taking in sustenance, food,
Right.
but taking in more than what you ever will need, being greedy. This is a historical reference that most of the great leaders from the Viking Age were considered to be generous. That was one of the most admired attributes, that you were generous. You brought in the books that I'm writing. It's there's a conversation with my son who's aghast at the amount of treasure that we accumulated, how much is being given away. And I laugh and I turn to him. I say, "Well, son, with more gold, I can keep more friends. Without giving the gold away, my gold could be taken."
Yeah.
So, by giving it away, I make stronger allies.
Right.
By giving it away, I enhance my reputation so that the next time I go out on a pillaging raid, the next time I go raiding, more of the best will want to join with me. There's a reason why we do what we do.
Right.
The counter to that is to be the greedy one, and there are references in our histories that tell us about that. They tell us of the greedy kings.
But friends are hard to come by.
That's the point. That's exactly it. Because with my friends, with my folk, with my people, I can go out and get more.
Yeah.
But if I continue to take away and not give anything back, well, then we go into this common concept of the law of diminishing returns. Pretty soon, no one's going to want to go on a raid with me.
Yeah.
No one's going to want to defend me. No one's going to want to be in my association. And then I'll have to compel them to do so. And you can't rely on people like that. So from a leader's standpoint, which is really what this comes down to, somebody in a position, the vulgar man in Bellows, the greedy man, if his mind be vague, will eat till sick he is. The vulgar man, when among the wise, to scorn by his belly is brought. So again, we're laughing at these people. We're laughing at them. The real men, the real women of this world will laugh at those people because they show their weakness visually. They're overweight typically. They're unhealthy typically. They're always taking from people typically. And again, there are references in the sagas about kings that were fit
Gluttonous.
warriors, but they were gluttonous. They were greedy, which does refer to Uthin's wolves, Gary and Freki.
The ravenous ones.
Ravenous and greedy, which, there's a story that goes along with that we won't get into tonight, but because it's controversial.
On to 21, I'll read Bray. Herds know the hour of their going home, and turn them again from the grass. But never is found a foolish man who knows the measure of his maul.
We see it time and time again. The foolish man won't keep his mouth shut, won't contain himself, won't see the light, because he simply can't. How much time are you going to spend with this individual? How long are you going to tolerate that individual? Typically, in our society, we won't. We don't allow those people amongst us.
Not long, if at all.
No. And the shame of it is we're a welcoming people. We want to teach. We want to share.
Yeah.
We don't care where you came from. Your point of origin means nothing to us. We don't care what gods you
Though
once
we
followed.
do want to know your
We
origins.
want to know those.
Yeah.
But we don't. That doesn't keep you from us. That's not going to keep you from us.
Right.
It's that foolish, belligerent, greedy, gross, vulgar, lazy individual that we don't want around us. We don't want those people in our association. We don't want our families exposed to those people. You have issues, that's fine. We'll help you through them. I don't turn people away based on who they are. But the foolish come amongst us all the time. It says plainly, cattle know when they ought to go home. It's common sense. It's time to go home. They can see the sun setting. That's a simple thing, man.
Yeah.
It's a simple thing. And then they leave the pasture. I know when it's time to leave my friend's house. I'm not going to overstay my welcome.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Now, this goes
yeah.
to this. This speaks to this. Knowing when it's time to leave.
Time and place. What's the normal, or what's the acceptable behavior?
Yeah.
Know when to shut your mouth. Know when it's time to go.
Yeah.
And Like in the Thorpe, it says, and in the Bellows, it's but the foolish man, he never knows his stomach's measure. You know, he keeps going.
And it just speaks to like greed overall, period too. Just, whether it be alcohol or food or wealth.
Right.
Just trying to attain more than you could ever possibly need.
The Larrington. But the foolish man never knows the measure of his own stomach. Now, I've overeaten.
Yeah.
I've consumed too much in the way of alcohol. It didn't sit well with me. I had to let it go. I was sick the next day, miserable. Choices made. Then, although I say I don't live my life with regret, I'd rather not live those days over again. Mm-hmm. But it was a life experience, and it brought me to where I am today, where I know what my measure is. I know my measure. I know what I'm capable of. I know what's best for me. I know what's not best for me. Not only in what I consume in the way of nutrients in the form of food or the form of beverages, but also what I want to consume into my life of those other things. There's lots of ways to be greedy. You can have too much of a lust for a good life, or a fun life, or fun moments. You can have too much of a good thing with women. You can have too much of a good thing of anything. Whatever it is, you can have too much of it. When do you know your capacity? When do you know that what I continue to consume just makes me a greedy, gluttonous pig? When are you going to learn your lesson? When does that come to you that you know? The cattle know. Yeah. They know when they've eaten enough. They know when it's time to go home. When are you going to learn that lesson? Within is putting this in your face. All of these stanzas
right, yeah.
and all the stanzas to follow, he's pointing out those people you don't want to be. But never is it said, thou shalt not.
Right, yeah.
It always says, it should not. You should not be this type of person. You should not do these things. You should not live that
if it
life.
does not say should
You
not, it describes.
should see this as an admirable human being, or this action as an admirable action that you would want to emulate. Everything that is spoken of in the Havamal, everything, comes down to the simple concept of what you should be as a decent human being.
Right.
What we call the drengir. The drengir is the prepared one, the noble warrior, the one who will stand forth, the one who will stand. It doesn't have to be the hero, but he'll be right there with the hero. She'll be right there with the hero. They will honor their obligations. We talk about the concept of maturity. How do you come to be a complete heathen man, woman, or child? Well, first you go through the process of becoming responsible to and for yourself. Now, all that we have read so far takes you to that place.
Yeah.
Responsible to and for yourself. Understand what is good for you, what's good for your family, good for your folk, but more, what's good for you. How are you becoming the best you? Where is your character development? How are you becoming the person that other people can want to spend time with, want to emulate on the higher level of things? What kind of person are you? Not what you're doing, but how you're doing it, who you are, your development as a human being. Next, become responsible to and for another. Typically, this is when we get married. This is when we take a partner into our life. And it is a partnership when you enter into that true relationship of marriage. The give and take of all things. That's why historically, when we talk about the women, we're given the keys to the home, the keys to the treasure box, the keys to the barn, the keys to everything. Because the man left and went out on his journeys, whether it be to go a Viking or
to go merchanting.
To go on a merchant trip or to go acquire seal skins or whatever it was that they had to do. That was the place of men
He needed to travel.
That doesn't
He
mean
needed
women
to
didn't
leave
go.
home.
It doesn't mean children didn't go. But for the most part, it was a man's thing to take that place. It was the woman's place, not totally on her own, because of the larger the farm, you had thralls, you had males, you had people that were there to do the heavy lifting, but you did the wise instructing on what to do to make the household thrive.
Manage the home.
That's it. So, in all things that we have read of up to this point, we're talking about the development of the heathen man and woman coming from the Havamal, the words of the High One. These are the things you should do. I'm giving you advice. I'm not saying you have to, but this is what happens when you don't. We live our life with choices and consequences. This is what we call our weird. Now, our weird is predetermined into the fact that you will die on this day, regardless of whatever else you do in your life. You can change things as you go, depending on what branch of the road you decide to take. It will change things.
But
for
your
you.
death is
You'll
inevitable.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
It's
like
inevitable.
taking a boat down the river.
That's why
you
it
can
tells
veer
us
the
that.
boat down the river, but eventually you get to the end of the river.
And that's why it tells us you can hide from the spears of life. The spears of life. All the things that are going to come to you, they're going to come to you. You can hide from it, but eventually you're going to die anyway.
Yep.
So why not improve your lot? Why not improve your life? Why not take on some of these challenges? Why not do the best you can do with that which you have been given to work with? And if you don't have it, if it's not here, if you don't possess wisdom yet, then at least be polite enough when you're in the company of the wise to keep your mouth shut. Open your ears and listen in silence. Because listen and silent contain the exact same letters. There's a reason for that in our English language.
Brothers, Jeff, Torbjorn, thank you for coming this evening. Appreciate the company, appreciate the conversation, and we will do this again. We will do this again. There is much more Havamal to cover, and it is going to be a joyous journey, delving into some things that might help us out later on in life. Here and now, Skull.
Skull.
It's all for the wandering. Skål.